The mountain man murdered his fat wife. But this obese girl proved he was innocent. The mountain man murdered his fat wife. Sheriff Cole spat the words into the dust of Redemption Falls like they were a verdict carved in stone. His voice carried across the autumn air, riding the wind down the main street, lined with weathered storefronts and sagging porches. Men stopped playing cards. Women paused with their baskets. Children leaned closer to the wanted poster nailed to the post in front of the sheriff's office. The poster showed a rough sketch of a bearded man with hard eyes and a scar along his jaw. Marcus Thornwood, wanted for the murder of his wife and child. They say he butchered them in a drunken rage, someone whispered. He always was a wild beast, another muttered. Living up in those mountains alone will rot a man's mind. Rumors clung to Redemption Falls like dust to boots. Some said they'd seen the cabin themselves, blood everywhere, no bodies left to bury. Others swore they'd heard him howling in the timberline at night, calling for the ghosts he'd created. No one mentioned that nobody had actually seen Marcus since the night it happened. It didn't matter. The town had chosen its monster. On the other side of the street, a young woman stood half-hidden in the shadow of the general store, clutching a sack of cheap flour to her chest. Emily Hart, 24, soft-faced and heavy-set, tried to make herself smaller, even though she knew she couldn't. Her dress pulled tight over her rounded stomach and hips. Her cheeks burned as she listened to them talk. They had words for men like Marcus, but they had words for girls like her, too. "Hey, Hart girl," a man called from the porch of the saloon. "You better watch out. With the way you eat, you might be next on Thornwood's menu." Laughter exploded around him. Emily flinched. She stared at the ground, knuckles whitening around the flour sack, the familiar sting of humiliation rising like bile. "Leave her be," an older woman murmured. "Why?" The man snorted. "Her own family can't afford to feed her. Heard they're about to sell her to Drake's boys just to clear their debts." The words hit Emily like a slap. She didn't need the reminder. She'd heard the argument last night through the thin walls. Her father's drunken voice, her mother's bitter silence. The name Silas Drake spoken like a curse and a solution all at once. If you're listening to this right now, tell me in the comments where in the world you're hearing Emily's story from. Because cruelty like this, the casual kind that laughs while it cuts, exists in more places than just one dusty Montana town. Emily turned away from the street, blinking hard to keep the tears from spilling. She moved quickly down the alley, heart pounding, breath shallow. The poster of Marcus Thornwood burned in her mind. A monster, they'd called him, a wife killer, a madman. But as she slipped behind the buildings toward the small shack her family rented behind the livery, she couldn't stop wondering what kind of man killed his wife and child, and what kind of town decided a man was guilty just because it was easier that way. Far above Redemption Falls, where the air grew thin and the pines whispered secrets to the rocks, a man lay half-conscious in the back of a cold, dark cave. His beard was matted with dried blood. His shirt was torn and stuck to the wounds beneath. Every breath sounded like it hurt. Marcus Thornwood, the murderer, stared at the dim circle of light at the cave mouth and thought, not of the town that wanted him dead, but of his wife's soft laugh and his little girl's small hand in his. "I didn't do it," he croaked into the silence. No one was there to hear him. Not yet. The shack behind the livery smelled of mold, old hay, and stale whiskey. Emily Hart pushed the door open quietly, hoping, just for once, not to draw attention. But hope rarely favored her. Her father was already waiting, half drunk, chair tilted back, boots propped on the table that served as their only piece of decent furniture. His eyes narrowed when he saw the flour. "That all you got?" he growled. "You think we can live on that?" Emily kept her gaze low. "It was all we had money for." His boot hit the floor with a crack. "Money's the problem, girl. You eat like a horse and never bring in enough." Emily swallowed hard. "I'm trying." "You ain't trying enough," he snapped. "Silas Drake sent word. Said he'll take you on. Says a girl your size will keep his men fed through winter." Her heart stopped. "No," she whispered. "Papa, please." Her mother's voice drifted from the corner, flat and exhausted. "It's done. Debt's too heavy. You're going." Emily clutched the flour sack to her chest as though it could shield her from the truth. "Mama, please." But her mother didn't look up. "Silas says you leave tonight." Emily felt the world tilt, the floor, the walls, even her breath. She had heard stories about Silas Drake's gang, men who killed for sport, who burned homesteads for fun, who treated women like livestock. "No," Emily repeated, shaking now. "Please, I'll work harder. Her father grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises. "It's happening. Stop crying. Nobody wants to hear you blubber." Emily bit her lip until she tasted blood. She had learned a long time ago that crying never saved her. 3 hours later, she was marched into Drake's camp in the woods, a ring of tents, stolen wagons, and men clustered around fires. Silas Drake himself stood waiting, tall, broad, face carved from cruelty. His eyes skimmed down her body with mocking amusement. "So this is the girl. Big thing, isn't she?" The men laughed. Emily felt heat crawl up her throat. She wished she could fold herself into nothing. Silas tossed a sack at her feet. "You cook, you clean, you do what you're told. Disobey, and I'll sell you to someone who likes breaking girls." Emily nodded, throat tight. "Yes, sir." It was the beginning of her weeks of quiet misery, scrubbing pots until her knuckles split, cooking over a smoky fire until her eyes burned, hauling water while men jeered behind her. Every night she curled into her blanket beside the cook tent and whispered to herself, "Survive. Survive until something, anything, changes." Something finally did. The morning she found the cave, she had gone farther than usual to find clean water, determined to avoid the men who found amusement in making her flinch. The forest was quiet, the kind of quiet that made the hair on her arms rise. A raven startled her, flying low through the trees, and Emily followed it without thinking. That was when she saw it, a dark opening in the rock face, half hidden by fallen pine boughs. She should have turned back, but something pulled her forward, a strange tug of instinct, a whisper that said, "Just look." Inside it was cold, damp. Echoes of dripping water trembled through the stone. Then she saw him, a man, long hair tangled, beard thick, clothes torn and blood-caked, lying on his side near a dying fire pit. His chest rose weakly. "Barely," Emily gasped. "Sir." The man's eyes opened, unfocused at first, then sharpening as he saw her. Gray eyes, beautiful eyes, even glazed with pain. He rasped, "Go! They'll kill you! I'm wanted!" Emily stayed where she was. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly. He let out a bitter laugh that cracked into a cough. "Dying? Leave me?" "No." Emily crawled closer, her instincts stronger than caution. "I can help." His gaze flickered over her, her sighs, her trembling hands, the fear she tried to hide. "You don't even know who I am." Emily pressed a hand to his forehead, wincing at the heat. "Tell me." "Marcus," he whispered. "Marcus Thornwood." The name hit her like lightning. The the man they say murdered his wife?" He nodded once, almost ashamed. "They'll hang me. But I didn't. I didn't kill Ruth or Lily." Emily looked into his eyes and saw nothing but grief. Not rage, not madness. Grief so deep it looked like it might consume him. She thought of all the times she had been blamed, mocked, punished for things she didn't do, the way people looked at her and assumed the worst. Her voice trembled. "I believe you." Marcus blinked. "Why?" Emily's throat tightened. "Because your eyes look like mine when I'm blamed for things I never did." For the first time in months, his expression softened. "You should go," Marcus whispered. "They'll hurt you if you're caught helping me." Emily shook her head. "I won't leave you," she said. "Not if you're innocent. Not if you need me." In that dark cave, in the darkest moment of his life, Marcus Thornwood realized something he hadn't felt in months. He wasn't alone anymore. Emily returned to the gang camp that night with shaking legs and a pounding heart. Her apron was soaked from carrying water, her arms sore from hauling wood, but her mind was filled only with the man in the cave, the man the entire territory wanted dead, the man she had just sworn to help, Marcus Thornwood, the murderer who wasn't a murderer. She lay awake long after the campfires dimmed, listening to the snores and muttered curses of the outlaws around her. Every few minutes she pictured Marcus lying alone in that cave, fever-hot, half-starved. She couldn't shake the memory of his voice, hoarse, raw, breaking when he spoke of Ruth and Lily. Before dawn, Emily made her decision. She rose quietly, heart hammering, and crept toward the cook tent. She stole a pouch of dried beans, a half loaf of hard bread, a small jar of salve, and the only clean cloth she could find. Her hands trembled the entire time, but she didn't stop. Marcus needed her. When she slipped out of camp and into the trees, the world felt sharper, like every branch was watching, every gust of wind whispering her name. She hurried through the forest, following the trail she'd memorized, until the dark mouth of the cave appeared between two pines. Inside, Marcus stirred at the sound of her steps. "Thought you'd left," he murmured, voice roughened by pain and fever. Emily knelt beside him, setting down the supplies. "I said I'd come back." Marcus blinked slowly. The firelight flickered across his gaunt face. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," Emily said softly, "but you need me." She tore the bread into pieces, soaked them in water to soften them, and held one to his lips. Marcus hesitated, pride and survival warring in his eyes, before he took a slow bite. "You're risking your life," he whispered. Emily didn't meet his gaze. "I've been risking my life every day with Drake's men. At least this is for something good." For the first time, a flicker of something gentle crossed Marcus's face. Gratitude or disbelief, or maybe both. Emily cleaned the crusted blood from his ribs, wincing each time he sucked in a breath of pain. She moved slowly, carefully, her fingertips steady, even though her heart wasn't. Every so often, Marcus studied her, not with the disgust she was used to, not with the cruelty she endured daily, but with a kind of stunned curiosity. Finally, he spoke. "Why would someone like you help someone like me?" Emily's breath caught. "Someone like me?" Marcus shut his eyes, scowling. "I didn't mean—" Your size, your kindness, your bravery. You should be somewhere safe, not here, not with me." Emily laughed weakly. "Safe? I've never been safe a day in my life." He looked at her then, really looked, and something inside him shifted. By the third day, Marcus could sit up with effort. By the fifth, he could stand with Emily supporting him, her shoulder braced against his side. They spoke little, but the silence between them grew softer. Trust. Tentative, fragile trust. Enough to build something on. But on the 14th night, everything changed. Emily was slipping back into camp after delivering food when she overheard Silas Drake's voice drifting from the main tent. "Someone's been stealing supplies," he growled. "Food, salve, bandages. Find who it is." Emily froze. Her blood turned to ice. A second voice spoke. "You think it's the Hart girl? The fat one?" Silas laughed. "Maybe. She's slow enough to get caught. Search her things tomorrow." Emily backed away slowly, every heartbeat echoing in her throat. They were getting suspicious. She had no more time. That night, she packed everything she owned: a worn blanket, a tin cup, the loaf she'd hidden under her bed. She slipped into the forest before the sun rose, returning to the cave with faster steps than ever before. When Marcus saw her dragging the blanket inside, his eyes sharpened. "Emily, what happened?" She didn't answer. She shoved the supplies toward him. "We have to go." He pushed himself up, wincing. "Tell me." "They know someone's stealing. They'll find out it was me. We need to leave before they do." Marcus swayed on his feet. He was still weak, still healing, but when he saw the fear trembling through Emily's fingers, he steadied. "I can't outrun them," he said quietly. "Not yet." Emily took a breath. "Then I'll help you." And she did. They moved at dusk, slowly, carefully, through the thick pines, Emily carrying the heavier supplies despite Marcus telling her he could manage. When he stumbled, she caught him. When he winced, she slowed. "I'm slowing you down," Marcus said bitterly after an hour. Emily tightened her grip on his arm. "You're alive because you stayed. That's not slowing me down." Thunder rumbled in the distance. The forest darkened. Marcus leaned heavier on her than he meant to, but she didn't complain, didn't falter. "You're stronger than you look," he muttered. Emily smiled faintly. "People rarely see anything true about me." Marcus stopped walking. His hand curled around her wrist. Warm, steady. "I see you," he said. The words stole her breath, not because they were loud, but because they were true. Before she could reply, a gunshot cracked through the trees. Marcus shoved her behind a fallen log. "They've found us." Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. The chase had begun. The gunshot ricocheted through the forest, echoing off the pines like a warning from the mountain itself. Emily pressed her back against the fallen log, breath trembling, eyes wide. Marcus crouched beside her, one hand braced on his knee, the other gripping a jagged rock, his only weapon. "They're close," he murmured. Emily swallowed. "How many?" "Too many for a fight." Marcus winced as he shifted his weight. "We run, slow as hell, but we run." Another shot cracked through the trees, followed by a hoarse shout. Emily recognized the voice instantly. Silas Drake. Marcus grabbed her hand. "Move!" They darted through the forest, weaving between ancient trunks, boots sinking into soft moss. Marcus stumbled twice. His strength was returning, but slowly, painfully slowly. Each time, Emily caught him before he fell, her arms burning with effort. Behind them, Silas roared, "Find them both! Shoot the mountain man! Keep the girl alive!" Emily's stomach twisted, alive, because they needed someone to punish, someone to break. She pulled Marcus harder. This way! They zigzagged through the trees until the roar of water filled the air. A river cut across their path, fast, icy, deep. The storm earlier that week had swollen it dangerously. Marcus shook his head. We can't cross that, not with my leg. We don't need to. Emily pointed upstream, where a fallen tree lay across the torrent. We can use that. They reached the log as another gunshot burst behind them. Bark exploded off a tree inches from Emily's face. Marcus turned her toward the log. Go. But you. Go, Emily. She climbed onto the slick trunk, arms out for balance. The river roared beneath her, threatening to pull her under. She made it halfway before turning back. Marcus! He was on the log, teeth gritted, muscles trembling. He was seconds from collapsing into the freezing water. Instinct, deeper than fear, sent her running back toward him. Don't! He rasped. Emily, don't come back. She reached him anyway, grabbing his waist, throwing his arm over her shoulder. Lean on me, she whispered. Please. He did. Together, they crossed the last stretch of the log, stumbling onto the far shore just as Silas's men reached the riverbank. He can't cross that with his leg, one yelled. Another cursed. They'll freeze to death out here. Let the mountain do the work for us. Silas snarled a command, but the river's roar drowned the rest. Emily didn't wait to hear more. She pulled Marcus into the trees, deeper, higher, until she found a narrow opening between two slabs of granite. A cave, not as big as the first, but hidden. Warm enough, safe. Emily helped Marcus inside. The moment they cleared the entrance, his legs buckled. She caught him, easing him down against the wall. Marcus closed his eyes, breathing through the pain. You could have died going back for me, he whispered. Emily knelt before him, brushing wet hair from her forehead. I wasn't leaving you. His eyes opened, storm gray and burning. Why? Emily froze. Why? The word echoed through her ribs, through her chest, through every part of her that wanted, for once in her life, to be seen. She looked away. Because you deserve to live. Because you didn't kill anyone. Because your wife and daughter. Her voice broke. Because nobody ever believed me when I told the truth, she whispered, and I won't do that to you. Marcus's breath shuddered. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. His fingers dwarfed hers, rough and warm despite the cold. Emily stared at their intertwined hands as though she'd never seen anything like it. Emily, he said quietly, you're brave in ways most men will never be. Heat rushed to her cheeks. Her voice trembled when she answered, I'm not brave. I'm just tired of being afraid. Marcus's thumb brushed her knuckles, gentle, deliberate. You saved my life. That's not fear. That's strength. She looked up and found him closer than she realized. Their breaths mingled in the cold air, warm where they touched, everything else fading. For a long moment they sat in the dim light of the cave entrance, neither speaking, the world narrowing to the inch of space between them. Finally, Marcus whispered, Come here. He didn't pull, he didn't demand, he just opened his arms. Emily moved into them slowly, as though afraid the moment might vanish. But Marcus didn't disappear. He wrapped his arms around her, strong, trembling, alive, pulling her against his chest. She felt his heartbeat, wild at first, then steady, because of her. Emily, he murmured into her hair, I thought everything good in me died with Ruth and Lily. Her fingers curled into his shirt. You're proof it didn't. Her breath caught. It wasn't a confession of love, not yet, but it was something deeper, something rawer. Hope, the kind that grows quietly in the dark. They stayed like that for a long time, curled together beside the stone wall as thunder rolled over the mountains. Emily rested her head on Marcus's shoulder, and the steady rhythm of his breathing eased her fear. When she finally pulled back, he touched her cheek, lightly, reverently. "You're safe here," he said. "As long as I breathe, you're safe." Emily's voice shook. "And you're safe with me?" Marcus smiled, a small, broken, beautiful smile, the first she'd ever seen. They did not kiss that night, but they didn't have to. The mountain had already witnessed the beginning. For the next several days, Marcus and Emily stayed hidden in the narrow cave tucked between two ancient granite slabs. The world outside was cold, wet, and waiting to kill them, but inside the cave a small fire kept the chill away and Marcus's slow recovery moving forward. Emily hunted rabbits with crude snares she had learned to set. She gathered pine needles for tea. She even washed Marcus's shirt in the freezing river and hung it near the fire, teeth chattering the entire time. Marcus watched her with quiet amazement. Every movement she made, every decision, carried a steadiness he hadn't expected. She was afraid, of Silas, of the forest, of being caught, but she acted anyway. Courage, he realized, didn't roar. It breathed shakily and stepped forward anyway. One afternoon, after Emily returned from the river, dripping wet from the waist down but triumphant with 2 trout, Marcus reached for her wrist before she could start cooking. "Sit," he said softly. "You've been on your feet since sunrise." Emily blinked at him, startled. "I'm not tired." "You're exhausted," he corrected, guiding her gently down beside him. "You don't have to pretend with me." Her shoulders loosened, tension melting just enough for her to lean back against the cave wall. Marcus wrapped a spare blanket around her legs. "Marcus," she whispered, staring into the fire, "Silas won't stop until he finds us." "I know. And everyone in Redemption Falls, they think you killed Ruth and Lily." Marcus's throat tightened. "They think I snapped, lost control, drank myself mad." Emily turned to him. "Didn't they know you? Didn't they know the kind of man you were?" "I kept to myself." Marcus stared into the flames. "A lonely man living alone in the mountains isn't someone the town trusts. I wasn't friendly, I wasn't social, and I was big enough, strong enough, rough enough that when the story broke, no one questioned it." Emily touched his arm gently. "I questioned it." Marcus's eyes met hers, and something warm bloomed in his chest. She looked away first, cheeks flushing. "We need proof. Something more than your word and my belief." Marcus nodded. "Silas bragged to one of his men once that he kept souvenirs, rings, lockets, things he took from the people he robbed." Emily shivered. "Ruth's necklace." "And Lily's hair ribbon," Marcus whispered, pain cutting through each word. Emily held his hand. "If he kept them, we can find them." Silence settled thickly between them. Emily knew what she was about to suggest. Marcus knew it too. "I need to go back," she said. Marcus's pulse spiked. "Absolutely not." "He trusts me," Emily insisted, voice trembling. "Silas thinks I'm just a fat girl with nowhere else to go. That's what they all think. That's why I can do this." Marcus grabbed her shoulders, firm but gentle. "Emily, he'll kill you." She shook her head. "He won't. He thinks I'm harmless. That's exactly why it's dangerous." But Emily didn't look away. She'd looked away her entire life, from insults, from blows, from humiliation. But she didn't look away from Marcus, Not once. "I can do this," she whispered, "not because I'm brave, but because I owe you the truth. You deserve justice. Ruth and Lily deserve justice." Marcus's jaw clenched. His hands trembled slightly on her shoulders, not from weakness but fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of watching another innocent woman disappear. "Emily," his voice broke, "I've already lost too much." "I know," she said gently. "That's why I have to do this. Because the truth isn't going to walk to us. We have to go to it." He bowed his head. For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of pine in the fire. Finally, he whispered, "If anything happens to you, I won't survive it." Emily closed her eyes, breath trembling. "Then I'll come back. I promise." Marcus cupped her face, his forehead resting against hers. "I don't deserve you." Emily smiled sadly. "Maybe we both deserve someone to believe in us for once." That night, under a moon half covered by drifting clouds, Emily prepared to leave. Marcus helped wrap her in a cloak dark enough to blend into the forest. He gave her a small carving knife, dulled with age, but sharp enough in a pinch. He rested his hand on her cheek one last time. "Come back to me," he murmured. Her voice cracked. "I will." Then she disappeared into the trees. The world seemed colder without her. Emily moved slowly, heart pounding, until the fires of Silas Drake's camp came into view. She slipped through shadows, keeping her head low, until she reached the cook tent. Men lounged by the fire pit, laughing, drinking, unaware she had ever left. Silas himself leaned against a barrel, polishing a revolver, eyes sharp as broken glass. Emily forced her breath steady and stepped into the open. "Where the hell have you been?" Silas snarled. Emily bowed her head. "Getting water. The stream's farther than usual." Silas smirked. "You better not be lying to me, girl. I can smell lies, and I break liars." Emily kept her voice steady. "I wouldn't lie." Silas's gaze swept down her body like a knife. "No, you're too stupid for lies." The men laughed. Emily's cheeks burned, but she didn't flinch. Not tonight. Not when Marcus's life depended on her. "Good," Silas said, pushing off the barrel. "Get to work." As Emily bent to stoke the fire, her eyes flicked to the large tent behind Silas's, his personal quarters. If he kept trophies from his crimes, that was where they'd be. She swallowed hard. Then she straightened, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked straight toward the tent, not trembling anymore, not doubting herself, just moving toward the truth, toward justice, toward Marcus. The flap of Silas Drake's tent hung motionless, heavy with the stench of whiskey, sweat, and secrets. Emily paused just outside it, listening, every beat of her heart thudding in her ears. The camp behind her buzzed with drunken laughter, men slinging insults at each other as bottles clinked and boots scraped across the dirt. No one noticed her. No one ever did. She lifted the flap and slipped inside. The tent was dim, lit only by a single lantern hanging from a nail. Shadows crawled over the cluttered space, maps, stolen rifles, crates of ammunition, and a cracked mirror propped against a stack of blankets. But what drew Emily's eye was the wooden chest by the cot. A chest with a lock. Emily knelt beside it, hands trembling as she pulled the thin hairpin from her apron. She'd watched the men pick locks before. She'd learned quietly, because a woman's curiosity was often punished, but a woman's silence was ignored. She inserted the pin, twisting gently. Click. The lid creaked open. Inside were trinkets, necklaces, rings, bits of ribbon, a child's button shoe, a man's pocket watch. Emily swallowed hard. Then her fingers brushed something soft. A small blue ribbon, delicate, frayed, stained with faded brown. Lilies. Her breath hitched. Beneath it lay a silver locket, dented but unmistakable. Inside were two miniature sketches, Marcus, younger and unscarred, and Ruth, round-cheeked and smiling wide. Emily clutched the locket to her chest. Proof, the truth, everything Marcus had lost. Footsteps crunched outside. Emily froze. Silas Drake shoved open the flap. He stared at her, his expression going from confusion to fury in the span of a heartbeat. "Well," he hissed, "looks like the fat little rat's been digging." Emily rose slowly. She kept her body between Silas and the chest, her fingers tightening around the locket in her apron pocket. "Give it," he snarled, stepping closer. "Whatever you stole. I didn't steal anything." Her voice was quiet, but steady. Silas laughed, a low, dangerous sound. "Don't bother lying. Girls like you don't know how." He lunged. Emily dodged, barely, the lantern falling from its hook and rolling across the dirt. Silas caught her arm, twisting it until she cried out. "You've been helping him, haven't you?" His breath hit her cheek, rancid with whiskey. "The mountain man, the murderer." "He's innocent," Emily gasped. "You killed Ruth and Lily." Silas backhanded her. She crumpled to the floor, stars exploding across her vision. "You stupid cow," he snarled. "No one will believe you. No one listens to pigs." He reached for her apron. Emily scrambled backward, hand flying to the knife Marcus had given her. Silas froze mid-step. "You're going to fight me?" he mocked. "You?" Emily's grip tightened. "Yes." Silas lunged again, but this time Emily ducked, slicing the blade across his forearm. Blood spattered the dirt. Silas roared, grabbing for his gun. A gunshot split the night. Silas staggered. Behind him, silhouetted against the firelit trees, stood Marcus Thornwood, pale, injured, but upright, rifle smoking in his hands. "Get away from her!" Marcus growled. Silas turned, bleeding, furious. "You should have bled out in the woods." Marcus stepped into the tent, eyes locked on the man who had destroyed his life. "And you should have rotted in a ditch long ago." They crashed together, Silas swinging wildly, Marcus blocking, countering, teeth gritted in pain. Emily scrambled out of the way, clutching the locket, watching the two men battle like wolves. Silas reached for his gun. Emily didn't hesitate. She rammed into him with all her weight, sending him stumbling backward. Marcus seized the opening, driving his fist into Silas's jaw. The outlaw hit the ground hard. Marcus grabbed Emily's wrist. "We have to go. The others heard the gunshot." But Emily shook her head. "We have proof now. We can't run. We have to end this." Marcus stared at her, at the blood on her lip, the fire in her eyes, and something inside him cracked open completely. "You're braver than any man I've ever known," he whispered. Shouts erupted outside. Boots thundered toward the tent. The gang was coming. Marcus pulled Emily close, pressing his forehead to hers. "Stay behind me," he said, "no matter what happens." Emily nodded, fingers tangling with his. Together, they stepped out of the tent into the line of rifles raised against them. Rifles gleamed beneath the moonlight as Silas Drake's men formed a semicircle around Marcus and Emily. Sparks drifted from the campfires like fireflies caught in the chaos, and the air felt tight, swollen with violence waiting to erupt. Marcus stepped forward, shielding Emily with his entire body. She could feel the heat of him, the way he held his stance despite the pain ripping through his half-healed injuries. He looked like a man ready to die, not for a fight, but for the woman behind him. Silas staggered out of the tent, clutching his bleeding arm, hate twisting his face. "Kill him!" he snarled. "Shoot the bastard!" "No," Emily shouted. Every gun turned toward her. Emily reached into her apron pocket, pulled out the locket and the small blue ribbon, Lily's ribbon, and held them high for all to see. "This is proof!" she cried, her voice echoing off the trees. Silas kept trophies from every family he destroyed. Marcus didn't kill anyone. Silas did. Murmurs rippled through the gang. Silas barked, "She's lying! She's nothing but a fat—" "Enough!" someone interrupted. It was Harlan Briggs, the gang's second in command, a man with weathered hands and a hardened stare. He'd been with Silas for years, but even he looked shaken. "You kept those things?" Harlan asked, eyes narrowing. "Even the kid's ribbon?" Silas sputtered. It's not." But the men were already shifting, uneasy, suspicious, afraid. Emily stepped out from behind Marcus, slowly, carefully, her voice steady, despite the trembling in her knees. "I heard him brag about it. I heard him say he killed Marcus's wife and child. I recorded everything." A gasp ran through the circle. Silas's face drained of color. Marcus felt the air change, felt the mountain lean in as though listening for the truth. Harlan glared at Silas. "Is it true?" Silas's hand twitched toward his gun. That was his answer. Before he could draw, Marcus fired a warning shot into the ground, the blast ripping through the night. Men jumped back. A few lowered their rifles. Some cursed and ran. Silas dove for cover, but Harlan tackled him, slamming him into the dirt. "It's over," Harlan growled. "I ain't swinging for your crimes." The gang disintegrated. Some fled into the trees, others dropped their weapons. Within minutes, Silas Drake was on his knees, bound and bleeding. Emily stood beside Marcus, her breath shaking, the ribbon still clutched in her hand. Harlan faced Marcus. "Take him to the sheriff. With the girl's testimony and that locket, they'll clear you." Marcus didn't speak. Not yet. He turned to Emily. Her eyes searched his face in the flickering firelight, fearful, hopeful, unsure. Marcus took her hand, warm, soft, braver than anything he had ever known. "You saved me," he whispered. Emily shook her head. "No, we saved each other." Marcus drew her into his arms, holding her tightly, his voice rough with emotion he could no longer contain. "You're safe here," he murmured against her hair. "With me, if you'll have it." Emily's breath caught. Her answer came as a whisper against his chest. "I've never wanted anything more." And with the flames flickering behind them, with Silas bound and the truth finally free, the mountain wrapped them in silence. Not an ending, not yet, but the fragile beginning of a life earned through courage, trust, and something far stronger than fear. Thank you for following Emily and Marcus through every shadowed forest, every heartbeat of danger, and every fragile moment of hope. Stories like theirs remind us that truth often hides in dark places, waiting for someone brave enough to reach in and pull it into the light. Every time you leave a comment, every time you share where you're listening from, it reminds me how far stories can travel, across mountains, across years, across hearts. So tell me, where in the world are you listening from right now? And if you still believe that every broken soul deserves a second chance, the next story is already waiting for you.